Hello everyone, and welcome to the Spotlight series with MediaCom. In each of these short videos, we will be shining a light on one of our clients' recent amazing work during the coronavirus pandemic. We'll be talking about the genesis of their campaign and delving a little deeper into how their brand and our industry has had to adapt since the crisis began. I'm Sue Unerman, Chief Transformation Officer at MediaCom, and with me today is Kate Dale, Campaign Lead from Sport England and responsible for one of my favourite absolute campaigns of this year. So Kate, hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Sue, and thank you for those kind words. I'm very proud of what we've produced this year and in all previous years, but yeah, that means a lot coming from you.
Well, you should be proud. We should all be proud. So just tell me, what are the biggest challenges that you've faced during this pandemic?
I was going to say it's been an interesting year, which has probably been an understatement, and the same for absolutely everybody. But I think the organisation I work for, Sport England, we're the government organisation responsible for grassroots physical activity. So back in sort of late February, March, when we could see what was coming, for us as an organisation, it was what can we do to help people get and stay active when we knew that all of a sudden the number of activities, or we could guess that the number of activities any of us could do was going to go from an infinite number to about 4, and how disruptive that was going to be. With this Girl Can in particular, we've been around for 5 years now. We've built up some amazing momentum. We'd really kicked off the campaign again in January with really strong film. And so the thought of potentially losing that momentum was really quite essentially soul destroying, really, apart from, personally, something you feel quite strongly about. So very quickly we needed to think about how we could sort of, I was going to say pivot, that's such an overused word, I could just think of us some friends, but how we could pivot and suddenly change something and find a way of connecting with not just the women who I'm used to talking to through this Girl Can, but everybody to find ways of getting active at a time when, like everyone else, we're going through all the disruption of moving to home working, dealing with all the anxiety, trying to find ways of connecting with people. And as a public sector organisation, it's not always easy for us to move with that much agility. It can take quite a long time to get paperwork things in place. So moving quickly, getting it right in a period of mass disruption, and feeling really responsible for doing it right all sort of came together. That was a very long answer, Sue, sorry.
No, that gives us a good sense of what was going on. And at a time when, quite frankly, all any of us felt like doing was sitting at home with biscuits, basically. I think I speak for the women of the nation by saying that was our essential reaction. So how quickly did you act, and how did you adapt what you normally do?
So we recognised the need for a new campaign. So while adapting this Girl Can, we need to speak to men as well as women. We need to speak to pretty much the whole nation. I mean, this Girl Can has always been a really broad target audience. This was everybody in England. Within, I think, by the end of February, when we all sort of knew what was coming, what was likely to come, and we could see what had been happening around the world, was when we started working on what we could practically do and what Sport England could do to really bring together all the different partners and all the different people working in sport and physical activity to start helping people stay active. It started by creating a resource called Stay and Work Out, where we brought together all sorts of different ways of getting active in what was then the new world. So many different versions of the world at the moment. Yeah, and finding how we could make that accessible, because there's lots of content on there. We knew there were lots of ways of getting active that didn't look like sport traditionally looked at physical activity, but finding the best ones and pulling those together and making it feel worthwhile was really important. So part of it was coming up with practical solutions, but we know, and this is absolutely learning from this Girl Can, that it's not just about giving people the practical ways of getting active. It's also about making them feel like they can, feel like it's worthwhile, and feel like it's going to work for people like them. So that's where the campaign that became Join the Movement came from, is although we didn't have time to do any of the insight trawling that we would normally do, and we've done with this Girl Can and we're undefeatable, we knew enough from that, I think, to understand that it had to feel worthwhile for people and it had to feel doable. So that's where creating a TV ad, radio ad, social, digital, it came from, of something that normalised it, made it feel achievable, looked fun as well, I think was really important. So really understanding, and we had that pretty much the whole campaign from initial brief through to going live within a month, which is just certainly at the speed with which we can usually work at, a ridiculous timeline, and took a lot of support, I have to say, from DCMS, which is our government department, from our main board, and also I have to say, and then this is mad, but from our partners and suppliers as well. And so from when we came to MediaCom and our media buying agency OMD and said, right, we need to be on TV, lead times were slashed to quite a ridiculous degree, and just looked at what we could do.
And what's the response been like to the campaign? Are you happy with the response?
Really, really happy. Because we got it live so quickly, again, we couldn't follow our normal way of doing it, which is to have a long build-up. And when we launched this Girl Can for the first time, and every sort of subsequent burst, we've had a long build-up, we've got people on board, we've explained what we're doing. This just kind of went out with a bang, really. But the stats that we've had back, with about half the population recognising the campaign and the ads, half of those taking action as a result, or becoming more active and increasing the frequency of the active. And we could see sort of separately from this, as Sport England did week by week research to look at the impact that COVID was having on activity levels, and not surprising, it brought so many things to a real halt. But we could see from when the campaign really went live and started to build up, that a lot of that was reversed, and people were finding different ways of getting active, particularly walking, running, cycling, those things, and at-home workouts as well, and people finding ways of doing it. And although, I mean, and it was fantastic what people like Joe Wicks have done, was absolutely amazing, it had a huge impact. We could see, like with all New Year's resolutions really, that people start off like we all did. I was going to play the ukulele, learn Spanish.
Yeah,
ukulele.
right.
Yeah. But all those things we were going to do, and then week or two in, it's like, and I think it built in. But we could see from when the campaign went live, that started to change again, and people just sort of building into their routines and building into their daily lives. And I think recognising in that very locked down period that we were in, that if they didn't make time to find a way of getting active, didn't make time to get active, what a negative effect that had on them. And I think the way people are talking about and recognising the need to be active and the importance of their mental health and their mental well-being. And I think that's really exciting, because I think it's helped change the way we maybe sometimes view physical activity. In that, for me, it's always been far more about how I feel. Yes, okay, I know it has physical health benefits. I know it may change my body, it may do all of those things. But for me, when I'm going through phases in my life when I'm active, I know how much calmer and happier, how much better I sleep, all those things. So more and more people recognising those, I think, is what will sustain and what can sustain physical activity in the long term.
That's brilliant. So do you think this is going to change how you approach communications in the future? What will you keep from the ways of working?
I'd like to keep some of the speed and agility, and just being able to not try and second guess everything, but actually focus on what we know and what we can do, and just get out there, that need to be motivating, fun, encouraging, normalising. I think there's a lot more that we can do. I think recognising, it's quite funny having years of just focusing on women, finding myself saying we need more men in it. I was like, oh, it feels really unusual. But I think it's made us focus on more that we have in common, absolutely. So maybe that some of this messaging doesn't always have to be truncated up or chunked up, and actually there's a lot that if you're struggling to get active, that actually that's the thing that unifies, rather than whether you're male, female, whether you're from a particular demographic group. Yes, there are different practical solutions that you will need, especially if we're looking into economic and those are low economic groups, and that's probably something we should come to. But in terms of that motivation, that desire, there's an awful lot that we have in common, so keeping some of that, I think. It's been really fun working with radio, which is the first time we've done that, and that's something that we're going to do the next burst of this Girl Can, which goes live this autumn, and looking at the way that people work with radio and that fits into people's lives. And I've worked in such visual campaigns so far. I think the role of audio in people's lives, and podcasts and Spotify and streaming and all of that, I think that's really interesting, seeing how that's changed people's media habits too.
And I guess one of the things you've stressed is that you were working with existing partners, so you all had experience, and I think that's interesting to just to dwell on a moment. You rather than starting from scratch, you were building. It's a team sport, right? It's a team game, I think, doing this. And so we were in the very fortunate position that you have all the shorthand, the knowledge that you share,
those relationships, and that we could just easily take what we knew, put it into this new context, and get going without having to have any sort of long, difficult setup meetings. I think that allowed us to, I know our creative agency who worked across on all of this, FCB Inferno, they let us into some of their sort of creative meetings around it that we would normally not be able to rely on. I have to say is how that process works. I think because we have a trusting relationship with them, we could do that. I think the way we work with MediaCom in terms of developing that initial buying brief and understanding what that had to be, it felt really easy. And given that we were all having to do this remotely, we couldn't sit around one table. I'd like to say I ate fewer biscuits as a result. It's just I had to buy the biscuits myself, I guess. As opposed to communicating agency supplies. But yeah, that we had those relationships and that we could do that. And so we could move incredibly quickly, I think, was huge. So I've really absolutely seen the value in having long-term relationships with our suppliers. Always sounds so transactional, but with our agencies. Supply, yes, public sector word. Yeah, I don't know if we could have done it if we were starting from scratch, to be honest.
Can I ask you if there's any brands out there that you've seen their comms for COVID and you think they've approached it well?
It's funny looking back at the timeline. It would be interesting actually to look at what the campaign timelines were, but I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks when none of us quite knew what to do, and TV and advertising looked very out of kilter, and then the sort of "We're Still Here For You" campaigns came in. And I think I remember Lloyd's doing one, obviously Virgin Media. This is also at the time before I was quite ready, and so I was getting really paranoid about everybody doing the user-generated content ads and wanting to get yours live as soon as possible and not feel just one of many by the time it came in. But I thought some of those responses were really, really lovely. I think the fast food coming back has been really nice, and I think and seeing how they've integrated their social media as well, and the relationships that they have, and how important people like. And this doesn't necessarily help with government obesity work, I know, but the KFC and McDonald's and Nando's, and how they've been able to really play off the loyalty of their consumers. And I mean, I've loved that about the way marketing work and the way it's to blend social media in, and those relationships, I think has been really, really lovely. I'm trying to think of sort of big set piece advertising.
So the KFC will take it from here.
That one.
Knowledge
Absolutely.
People have been trying to cook KFC.
Yes, absolutely. And it had authenticity, which is a word we use so much on what this girl can, but it absolutely had that, and it didn't feel contrived.
It's great to talk to you. We will obviously add the ad that we were talking about, but future campaigns coming up?
Yeah, so This Girl Can, as I said, we're doing some new filming this week, actually. So we'll be back in the autumn. We'll never go away, but we'll be got a new updated version of the Me Again film we launched in January, which some of it is around updating with making sure everything's social distancing compliant, but also it's responding to the impact that Corona's had, particularly on women's lives, because it has had a bigger burden on women financially, in terms of care, also anxiety as well, and feeling comfortable about going back out. So you'll see all of that reflected in it. We've found yet more amazing women. I don't know why I'm saying that with surprise, because women are amazing. But yeah, more amazing stories to tell as well. So we'll be sharing that in September. And really, September is always an important time for This Girl Can, because whether or not we have children, that whole sort of new school year feeling we all have, that even if you don't, you never quite lose it. This is going to be the mother of all returns to school, hopefully, touching wood, it will be. And that thing of moving into whatever life is like with Corona now, we kind of have to get on with it, incorporating it. So we're going to be addressing that, which is going to be really exciting. And then, and hopefully more campaigns for other target audiences next year. So watch this space.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Sue. Really good. Thank you.
Right about now, funk soul brother. Right about now.